Repeat after me. I open myself to love.
I open myself to love.
I open myself to joy.
I open myself to joy.
I am one, unafraid to become.
We believe
We believe there's one power, love, intelligence that creates everything,
including each of us.
We each use that same power, love, intelligence
to create our life according to our beliefs.
I stand for peace, let there be love.
Whatever that new experience is, whatever it is that we're intending and desiring, we are opening ourselves to it, each of us individually and all of us together.
Our new life.
Our new life.
Our new life begins with a new thought.
We are making a new world now.
So as we were preparing for Common Ground Sunday, I had a demonstration that I wanted to do on balance, and there's a way to use a bat to do that. And Carol Adams and I talked about a dialogue that we could have together on Friday morning. This was like real late stage preparation. And this morning, we had a conversation about how everything changed yesterday. The events in Charlottesville changed everything yesterday. And I got to tell you that I'm a little embarrassed to be a white man in America with a baseball bat at this point, because that's not as okay as it had been a couple of days ago. I am not going to whine about being the underprivileged in this situation. There's stuff going on in our country which is very painful, that has a lot of hurt in it. And what we say in New Thought is that healing is the revealing of the truth. Healing is not where we get to fix a problem or identify something that's broken and repair it. Healing is the revealing of the truth. So what we're about in a challenging time like this is to find the truth that's hidden in there somehow and allow that truth to come out. And that brings the healing. So like 80-something years ago, we elected an African-American president, and lots of people said, oh, we're now a post-racial society. And no, we're actually not. It turns out there's some other stuff that's going on that's buried down beneath that, that's lower than that. I describe that as an abscess. So we need to open it up and cleanse it out. And that process is not always pretty, but that's what happens with the healing. So that's not what we had intended to be talking about today, but there we are, having this particular experience, and this is the situation that we're in, so we bring our full, conscious, intelligent, intentional selves to it, to allow something new to come into experience. So I'll tell you the example that I was going to give you is, this is a baseball bat, it's got the skinny end and it's got the heavy end. And what we can do, as we so often in our meditative practices and our spiritual practices, we're talking about getting ourselves into balance. So the idea is, where is it that I can put this bat so that it's going to be in balance? And then I get to move it back and forth just a little bit. And that's a wonderful metaphor. But it's actually more complicated than that. Because we're not living in a two-dimensional world. Our senses all tell us that we're living in a two-dimensional world. It's either light out or dark out. It's either cold or warm. It's either inside or outside. It's either me or not me. Our senses are all telling us that we're in this world of duality. And the balance point is between wherever it is that I am now and wherever it is that I want to be, there's a balance point. Maybe it's more three-dimensional, and you get to figure out where that's going to be. Or maybe you try and do that exercise on the deck of a ship that's tilting in the waves. Or maybe you do it in an airplane, in turbulence, where it's going up and down in every which way. Or maybe it's some part of the universe where gravity is not always constant. And that balance point becomes elusive. And the point that I want to make with that is that we're living in a multidimensional world. All of us are bringing something to it. All of us are in a particular position, not just in the universe and in creation and in what's going on, but in what we're bringing to it. So that balance point keeps on shifting. And try as we might to find a choice that we can make between left and right, between progressive and conservative, between opening and restricting. It's always too limited. It's always too limited because the playing field keeps changing. So we can look at that and just be unhappy and say, this just doesn't work. This is very dissatisfying and I don't like it. And we're welcome to do that. Because in the world of experience that we're having, what we get to do is we look at the situation that we're in and we say, do I like the situation that I'm in? If the answer is yes, then continue doing what we're doing. That's called fun. That's called joy. And there's an invitation to just keep on doing that. If the answer is no, or even if the answer is mostly but not completely, then there's the next question. So what do I want to have happening instead? And that's the question that brings us to, what am I going to do? What are my next steps to make that happen? Our friend Robert D. McDonald says that the actual next question after that is, once I have that new thing that I think I want, how will I know that I have it? We quantify what it is that we're looking for. I want to be happy. Cool. Are you ever happy? Yes. Okay, mission accomplished. Well, no, I want to be happier. Okay, what's that going to look like? What's that happiness going to look like? Because unless we know what it is that we're looking for, we have no idea when we've gotten there. Got 9 different candles here. There's a lot of subtlety to all of those spiritual practices. They all have a lot of richness to them. I was listening to a guy on the radio, actually yesterday, who was talking about the point that Buddhism makes, where the Buddha said that life is suffering. And what he meant when he said that life is suffering is that if there's something that we experience, the fabulous meal, the wonderful vacation, the delightful celebration or party, as soon as that's over, we feel the absence of it, and we miss it, and we want to have it again. And the point is, that's what suffering is. It's knowing that we can be having something that we're not having now. So the balance point is, what is it that I want to be experienced now and on an ongoing basis that's going to be good for me and good for everybody? So I don't think I'm going to have anybody in this group agree with me that what was going on yesterday and what continues to be going on in Charlottesville is not who we want to be. That's not the country that we want to claim as our own. That's not the model that we want to present to the rest of the world, to our children, or even to acknowledge for ourselves. Those are the times that it makes me embarrassed to be a middle-aged white man in America, whether I'm carrying the baseball bat or not. It's not me, that's not what I'm about, but I know that it's really easy to mistake me for somebody who does that. That's not who I am, and that's not what I am. So what I can do is take a stand and say, whatever it is that needs to change, I'm willing to step up and bring my energy and my intentionality and whatever resources I have to making that change happen. And it's been said often that not only is it possible for a very small group of people to change the world, that's the only way it's ever been done. So Carol and I are going to do a dialogue here and just talk about what comes up. She's been doing a lot of work with 4 quadrants as we go from childhood through adolescence, through adulthood, through elderhood. And each one of those has a different perspective, and it's not like all the adolescents do it right.
I think we're all still there.
Yeah, we all have some of that stuff going on. And actually, before we start, one of the things that I'd love to do, because it changes the tone in the room, is every group has a youngest, and every group has an elder. So if you think that you're the elder and you don't want to out yourself, just don't raise your hand for this one. And we'll skip over you. If you think that you might be the elder in the room, if you'd raise your hand. Okay.
Yeah, she got you all right.
Thank
How
you. All right.
It changes the dynamic when we understand who our elder is.
And our younger? How old are you? What's your name and how old are you?
James 18.
A freshly minted adult.
And I just had a birthday and I just turned 66. So I'm excited. All right, yes. Speaking of Leo, as you know, next week we're going to have a balance point, a marriage between the sun and the moon, right? The solstice.
Eclipse.
The eclipse. And they say that the energy of the eclipse started at the last new moon. So it's a 4-week time because the eclipse occurs on the new moon. And about an hour into that time of that new moon, I woke up in a panic. And I felt the deepest despair I think I ever felt. And my partner Craig turned to me and goes, what's wrong? And I said, I want my mommy. And it was, I want my mommy, not my mother, my mommy. I wanted to be reassured. I wanted to be cared for. And I knew that while it was personal, it wasn't private. That it was for all of us wanting our mommy. And they say that once that moment started, that it was going to bring polarity out. Those contractions and expansions. And Craig and I are going, we're leaving Wednesday to head down to visit North Carolina, then go over to South Carolina to be in the path of totality. And they say that once you're in the path of totality, it changes you forever. And I have no idea what that means. And I don't want to know. But you'll tell me when I get back.
Don't even ask me afterwards.
But and the only reason I bring this up is because I wanted to point out that I said to you earlier that when we planned our trip, we planned the distance and where our halfway point is. So on the way down and on the way back, we're planning to stay in Charlottesville. Wow. So my question is, how is Charlottesville the halfway point? In preparing for today, we had talked Friday, we had a whole plan. And then yesterday happened. And I didn't know about it because I was out with family. But once I heard, I knew that was the inspiration.
The question for me is, who am I in this? It's so easy to pick up our pointer and say, it's him, it's them, it's that group. It's that this never got healed. It's that that problem got left over from the 60s. No, the 1860s. It's easy to say that's where the problem is. And that's fine. That's really important, to be able to identify what the issues are, what the things in the world are that we need to deal with. But the next step beyond that, and maybe even at the same time, is who's doing the pointing? What am I bringing to this? Because if I say the problem is over there and I say the solution is over there, then I'm abdicating any responsibility or any authority that I have for changing something. And you know what happens when we see a problem and we don't change it?
Investors.
Nothing. Yeah. Nothing good happens when we see a problem and we don't address it. So maybe your job is to go to Charlottesville bringing your consciousness and your light. Maybe our job is to join in emotional and spiritual mental support and prayer to know that all of the people who are already planning to be in Charlottesville, or all the people who weren't planning to be in Charlottesville and who are supported and buoyed and empowered, not to do the things that we think need to be done. Doing that could just cause more problems. What's the long game? Once this is all done, not what do we want to have, but how do we want to feel? Who do we want to be? Who do I want to be? That's the intention, that's the prayer that we get to set. Who are we together once this healing has come about? And what am I when this has come about? And then let that guide our actions. We kind of sarcastically say around here, God knows what I'm doing next. But it's true, God knows what I'm doing next. And if I shut up and I allow myself to meditate and go into prayer and set an intention for that revelation, for that guidance to show up, then I too know what's next for me and I can take that step.
You know, as I was driving here, I was thinking, what am I going to say? And I was listening to a lecture by Carolyn Casey. And you know how when you're listening, then suddenly you start drifting into your own thoughts. And my own thought was, what am I going to do next? And when I came back, the next words out of Carolyn Casey's mouth was, when you don't know what to do next, invite trickster. Invite Raven Trickster in to disrupt the chaos. Now, I don't really know what that means.
God knows what that means.
But my plan, right, my plan is to invite Trickster in, which allows me to give up expectations. Give up the expectation. You know, when I was watching the video from last night, I was noticing how brittle the white supremacists, the alt-right, the Ku Klux Klanners, how brittle their bodies looked. And I felt that just with a feather, they would shatter. And I thought, how am I that? You know, and how do I bring my heart so that I don't match their energy? How do I love them? So as I was leaving the house, Craig and I have an altar. And this jumped out at me, so I'd like to pass it around and give you the opportunity. I got this in Mexico last winter. Beautiful heart with a flame. And I am the world, and you are the world. So I'm just going to pass it around and give everyone a moment to gaze into it. But we won't stop the dialogue.
Yeah, actually, you know what? We can keep talking probably for another hour.
Or we can stop.
And instead, what I want to do is everybody take a deep breath again. And a deep breath out. Once you're comfortable, close your eyes and settle into the idea of namaste. The God in me sees the God in you. The God in me sees the God in you. When we look at somebody, can we allow our highest self, our highest level of consciousness, to see that bright light of love that's shining in them? Whether they're our best friend, our ally, our comrade, or somebody who's part of the other. Just breathe in. Settle into that namaste feeling. And understand how somebody can look at you, that same feeling of namaste, even if they're not in the same positionality that you are. We are not complete. There's much still to be done. There are activities to be embarked upon. There are meditations to be engaged in. There's prayers to be said. And there is allowing. How do I open myself and allow something new, something good, something joyous, something wonderful to replace that which I don't particularly care for now. You can set that intention. You can do it now, you can do it at any point. We've got a meditation coming up, I bet you can do it then. We've got some prayer coming up, I bet you can do it then. But you are that bright light shining that is going to bring that change into the world. You're a blessing. Please remember that always. Thank you. Thank you.
So it is. So it is.